Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Ham Nation is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by ICOM. For more information, visit ICOMAmerica.com/HamNation. By DX Engineering. DX Engineering offers practically everything you need to outfit your shack, plus the fastest shipping in the industry. In-stock items ship the same day, Monday through Friday until 10 p.m. Eastern. For more information, visit dxengineering.com/HamNation. And by Harry's. For guys who want a great shave experience for a fraction of what you're paying now, go to harrys.com. Get $5 off your first purchase by entering the code HAMNATION when you check out. This is Ham Nation, episode number 212, September 2nd, 2015. Shortwave 101. Hey, good evening. No, I'm not Bob Heil. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW. Bob is still on the road tonight. So, of course, while the warden is out, the asylum is left to the inmates. And we have our typical band of marauders here. We've got Gordon West out on the West Coast, obviously. West Coast makes perfect sense, doesn't it? We have George Thomas up to my north in Jackson, Mississippi. We will head out to Colorado and talk a little bit to Amanda. She'll have your chat room questions. And we have, from up around the Nashville, Tennessee area, a really cool guest tonight, Ted Randall, WB8PUM. He owns a shortwave radio station, WTWW, and he also has a really cool radio show called the QSO Radio Show. And the last time I was on the QSO Radio Show, George was there. It was around the Young Ham of the Year Award, and I was inebriated, to say the least. It was fun, and we'll talk about that and a whole lot more tonight. But first, let's head out to the aforementioned West Coast and the aforementioned Mr. West. How are you tonight, Gordon?
We are fine. And, you know, Don, the chat room, when you come out with 20 pages of an hour's worth of chat, they are classic. So I don't dare watch them as we're doing these casts. Hey, CQ Canada. Wow. I got several letters from Canada saying we paid for our subscription, but we aren't getting CQ. So I want you to know, Canada, that I'm working on it. All right, this weekend we have 4 hurricanes off the Pacific coast, and luckily they're going to miss Hawaii, but big waves, so you know where I'll be this weekend. Next weekend, that is weekend after next, September 10, make that 11, 12, and 13 of September, is the Los Angeles Southwestern Division Convention right here in Torrance, California. Chip Margelli, K7JA, is the banquet host and speaker. I'm going to be helping him out. 65 booths. It's going to be a busy weekend. Also, weekend after next is the VHF UHF contest. And then September 18, 19, and 20, it's Peoria Superfest. I've been there. $5,500 in prizes. Bob Braninga is going to be there, the father of APRS. Also, that whole month of September 19th through October 19th, Convoy on the Air. Distinctive call sign N4N. So take in a ham fest for the next few weeks. And if you do Wupong, be sure and bring your Wupong stick because that'll be important. All right, we had a lot of questions about CW. So, Brian, if you'll go ahead and roll the CW. And that was, how do you make a CW key out of a clothespin? Well, first of all, you got to do a small clothespin, not the big fat ones, or else you'll be in trouble, and you'll see why. You need to nail down that clothespin as a CW keyer so it doesn't jump around. And we do a flathead nail in the bottom of it because that's going to act as one of the contacts. So we first pound in the nose and we tap it down. You have to be drilling it ahead of time or else you'll split that clothespin. And this is going to be a neat little keyer. And some of the clothespins, the older ones, are really hard wood. And you can see how we've got it there. And that is sort of the keen swing adjustment. There's no contact between the dots and dashes there. Now we got to go for the other end. So we take out the trusty drill and we drill away, and we have a nice little hole there. That's actually too far in toward the spring, as you'll see. It's going to be a little hard to get things connected just right. Take that that nail and put a little lug on it, because that's going to be one of the contacts we're going to interrupt off the battery. And pound that nail. Oh, God, well, you ruined that one. You killed the finger. You killed the keyer. So start over again. I told you to drill the hole out fairly large. All right, let's try that again. Here's a new one. Got the terminal on there. And now we go for the adjustment. That's a little too far apart. So we'll tighten it up a little bit more. Yeah, now we got it. And you can use that screw on the other end. Okay, we add the wires to those two terminals. If you look carefully, a little bit of blood on there, but you'll see that the keyer is all set to go. And there is your inexpensive clothespin keyer. And you just take a little button, any kind of button will do, and stick it on the end. And that way kids will have a good time. Now, the problem with the big fat clothespins is you can't get this little tack over it. The reason we have the tack on the very end is because the keyer sort of wobbles back and forth. And you don't want wobble. So make sure that, as you see, the dark brown is too wide. That's an old-fashioned one. So now they've cheaped out cutting back on wood, so the new pins make that clothespin to work out great. Now, here's one type of sounder, and this is no good. It's a buzzer. No, you don't want a buzzer. So can the buzzer and go for the piezoelectric. Hear how sharp that is? The buzzer will develop bad habits. And the little piezo comes from OBO, and it's model 35 Charlie 2. So that's it for making up your little keyer. And when completed, they probably won't make it through TSA. And again, watch out for this one here because it's too fat. This one is just right because now we can get the little clip over there. And let me tell you, you can do some quick code with it. So build a keyer, get kids to build a keyer, and I think it'll be a fun project. Everybody loves a code, so there you go. Now, speaking of code, we saw ICOM America last weekend out in Boxborough. So let's take a look and see what ICOM America has in store for us tonight.
Mark your calendars. You're invited to the biggest D-Star QSO party. Talk to the world by connecting through D-Star repeaters around the globe. D-Star QSO Party 2015 is this month from September 18th through 20th. D-Star continues to help amateur radio grow. It's an exciting technology that introduces new people to the hobby. It's high-speed communication and digital voice that's crystal clear. And the D-Star QSO Party is a great way to develop camaraderies with amateurs all over the world. Communicate through as many D-Star repeaters as possible throughout the world. Make contacts with D-Star stations and amateurs. Work as many foreign countries as possible to increase your chance to win. And get bonus points for including GPS position data and communications distance in your log. 10 qualified participants will be randomly selected to win an Asus MemoPad 7. For complete party details and instructions on how to submit your log, visit ICOM America's amateur landing page. Then join the D-Star QSO 2015 party September 18th through 20th. Good luck, and make sure you visit icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on the 2015 D-Star QSO party. And you can tune in and enter to win after each episode of Ham Nation. Go to icomamerica.com/hamnation and register to win for some great swag prizes like T-shirts and hats. And you can learn how you could win the monthly grand prize drawing for a new radio. The August grand prize was an IC 2300H, And we've got a lucky winner on that now. It's Lucas F. W6AER. He won that IC2300H. It's powerful, small, and simple to use VHF mobile with 65 watts of stable output. For September, I don't know what the prize is going to be yet, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be another one of those great ICOM radios. So go to icomamerica.com/hamnation after this and each episode of Ham Nation and register to win. And sign up, good luck, and don't forget to follow ICOM America Inc. on Facebook and Twitter. And now let's get Don back in here and see what's been going on in the wide, wide world of, I don't know, amateur radio news?
Stuff. Hey, Gordon, look, you showed your wolf hong. Look, mine's a little bit smaller than yours, but I got my wolf hong right there. All right. Wolf hong pin.
Yeah, we had the real one here, but that's okay. Yeah. It's good to have those wolf hongs handy.
Yeah, it's a little loud. Yeah, that's I got that for participating in the wolf hong ceremony at Huntsville. And people who just came by and were not participants got that as well. So if you ever get the chance to do the wolf hong ceremony, by all means, go to one. And if you ever get the chance to participate in one, by all means, do that because it's a lot of fun. This is on my Hamvention 2014 lanyard. So it's my wolf hong is in a place of prominence. Speaking of prominence, got some solar weather, solar prominence, and also a pretty interesting 156th anniversary of something solar prominence related. And we'll get into that right after this from Amateur Radio Newsline. From Amateur Radio Newsline Report, number 1974, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, September 2nd, 2015. We begin in Washington State, where the largest wildfires in the state's history have left 3 dead, consumed more than 500,000 acres, and destroyed at least 200 homes. The fires surrounding the central Washington town of Twisp were considered among the hardest to contain. Amateur Radio Newsline's Kent Peterson, KC0DGY, spoke with Twisp Police Chief Paul Boudreau, KG7PTU, about how a collective of relatively new hams in the police department, working with hams in the community, has allowed residents to help one another by keeping those all-important channels of communications open.
We are in a valley surrounded by the mountain ranges. We have 3 ways into the valley, and 2 of them have been blocked off. Within my agency, the town of Twisp, we had the fire coming to us. We had to evacuate. We had 3 fatalities, firefighters who, from the initial attack, got blown over when the wind shifted way before anybody would have expected it, and much faster than they expected.
Is the fire area now under control?
Most of it's under control. There's one lead edge, probably about 3 miles long, that they're trying to button up, but the rest of it around is stable, and they're just keeping an eye on it.
What prompted you to become a ham radio operator?
I was with the tribal agency for 8 years. Within the tribes here in Washington State, we're very big into the emergency management, and ham became one of the go-to backup systems for communication. And then when I got over here to Twisp, got very interested in it again. AT&T failed on us. Verizon went down for a little while, but it's still up, sporadic at times. Communication, when it goes big.
From the standpoint of knowing you have a group of ham radio operators on the other end of a radio, what reassurance does that bring you?
Having that knowledge that I have somebody out there watching my back when I need it is, you can't ask for anything better. It's just golden.
If you could advise other public safety officials about the value of ham radio, what would that be?
I would tell them to find a local ham club, go and talk to them, start getting interested in it, start out learning how the system works. The reason why I made my guys go to ham is so that they would have the gear in their cars, they would learn to use it, enjoy it as a civilian, and then when we need it, they're already up on speed. They're not trying to learn how to run a...
Chief Boudreau noted that the town's police department is now entirely made up of licensed ham radio operators. And hams are hitting the road in Boston to assist with 2 important public events for the benefit of that city's Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. The first event, the Jimmy Fund Marathon Walk, steps off Sunday, September 27th. The all-day trek along the 26-mile route follows the same path as the Boston Marathon, with hams providing administrative communications as well as emergency communications for medical tents and the sweep vehicles deployed to them. Hams are needed to operate on 2 meters and 440. To participate, send an email to bob@wa1ida@arrl.net. And just a few weeks later, on Sunday, October 11th, the Boston Athletic Association's annual half marathon, which also raises funds for the Cancer Institute's Jimmy Fund, will set out along the Emerald Necklace in Boston. Amateur Radio
radio volunteers are needed to provide communications at medical and water stations until early afternoon.
Registration can be done on the Athletic Association's website. For questions, contact Brett Smith, AB1RL of the Boston Amateur Radio Club at ab1rl@brettcsmith.org. Registration for the International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend can be described in one word: shining.
Organizers say the numbers topped 500 this year. A total of 506 registrants from 32 countries took part in the annual event August 15th and 16th, and the greatest participation was seen in England, Australia, and Germany. Other nations showing increased growth in participants included Canada, Cuba, Bulgaria, France, Portugal, and Scotland. In the United States alone, there were 70 lighthouses and lightships registered for the event. 13 sites were registered from Cuba, which has been normalizing its relations with the United States. Although the numbers were good, organizers said that 2014 was still the best year when 544 entrants signed up to operate.
The next Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend will be August 20th and 21st, 2016. And with this month already gone, the ARRL is looking toward next August, specifically to spark new interest in its August UHF contest.
The ARRL's ad hoc subcommittee on VHF and above revitalization is asking the amateur community to suggest ways to boost involvement in the annual late summer competition, and they want input no later than October 1st. The committee is seeking details about HAM's involvement on the UHF-VHF bands and thoughts on how to increase participation in the contest. Submit ideas, suggestions, or other comments via email to vhf-input@arrl.org.
And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for over 37 years and counting, at www.arnewsline.org. With Kent Peterson, KC0DGY, and Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW 73. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. And now, here's Dr. Tamitha Skov with the solar update.
We say goodbye to big solar flare producer region 2403. We watch a huge coronal hole form in the northern part of the sun. And effects from a better late than never solar storm that we had just this past week lands two of our Aurora field reporters in the headlines of the Washington Post and the BBC. That's in the news this week. Hi, I'm Tamitha Skov, and the sun this week is kind of settling down from last week's festivities. We no longer have any big M-flare producers as that huge region has now rotated off out of sight off of the west limb. But we have had some beautiful prominence eruptions, as you can see, in the northwest and also in the southeast, and we're watching the southeast region quite closely. On top of that, we've also had this gorgeous coronal hole that has opened up. It started as part of a failed filament eruption, but then you can just see this area begin to kind of evacuate and just suck off, and amazingly we get this huge coronal hole that we're now staring at. And what's interesting about that is that it begins to reach down into this region over here, which is adjacent to another filament. So we're watching this area quite closely to see whether or not we might get yet another solar storm launch in the next few days. Switching to our M-flare threat meter, you can see we definitely have been declining since region 2403 has rotated out of sight. In fact, the last M-class flare we had was back on August 30th. We did get a little bit of a bump on August 31st, but it was only about a C-class flare, and things continue to trend down. So you amateur radio operators, rest easy, because it doesn't look like there's another M-flare player in sight for easily the next week or so. Switching to our solar storm conditions, we got absolutely hammered this past week. This was due to a set of solar storms that went back to back, and it was followed by some high-speed wind. It all started around the 26th, and then we jumped up to moderate storm levels for absolutely days. And the only reason why the storm levels weren't even higher than this was because these storms were actually very slow. Otherwise, we would have had even more intense storming than we had. Things finally settled down right around the 29th and into the 30th, and since then things have been pretty quiet. Although we are anticipating some more fast wind that should be coming here and hitting us within the next few days or so. So the highlights of the aurora this week come from Jake Stelly of Wisconsin, whose amazing photos landed him in the Washington Post. And also Karen Monroe of North Scotland, whose time-lapse from her living room ended up making the headlines on BBC News. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are anticipating the impact of that high-speed stream. So NOAA is giving us about a 60% chance of a major storm at high latitudes over the next few days or so. At mid-latitudes, we're only expecting about a 25% chance for a minor storm. But these streams have been a little bit underwhelming as of late, so it may not last for that very long, and it may not hit as hard as we think it might. But things will then, after that, should be calming down and returning to normal, because we don't see any solar storms in our future. Switching to your solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, well, you can really tell when region 24-3 has rotated out of view, because everything is in the green now. We have gone to basically no threat for an M-class flare or for a particle radiation storm. As a matter of fact, we actually might have a little bit of an issue for radio propagation for you amateur radio operators, because the fluxes are now so low. But hey, for you GPS operators, it's time to get your drones out, because it looks like it's nothing but sunny weather, at least for the next week. So this week looks like we're finally calming down a little bit. Outside of that high-speed stream that we're expecting in the next day or two, things are definitely going to be quieting down over this week. So you amateur radio operators, outside of having maybe some flux issues, you should be able to get back on the bands and start having some good times, as opposed to the big radio blackouts that you were experiencing last week. And you aurora photographers, after all of the storming that's been going on, rest. It is your time to rest. And way to go for you guys that got some press on both the BBC and Washington Post. Keep those aurora photos coming, and stay diligent. All of you guys are space weather rock stars. I really love it. I'm Tamitha Skov. Thank you for watching.
All right, good stuff from Dr. T. And, you know, she lurks in the chat room quite often, incognito. So if you want to say hi to Dr. T, feel free. She's probably in here. Speaking of solar news, it was 156 years ago today that something called the Carrington Event happened. Brian, go ahead and throw those slides up. It was 11:18 a.m. on a cloudless morning. That picture right there that you're seeing, the drawing, Dr. Richard Carrington over in England was projecting a telescope image of the sun, an 11-inch wide image of the sun on a screen, and he was drawing those sunspots. And then all of a sudden, these two brilliant beads of blinding white light appeared over his drawing, intensely rapidly intensifying. I'm trying to read this without my glasses. And realizing he was witnessing something unprecedented, he ran to tell someone. He came back within a minute, was mortified to find that it was already very much changed and enfeebled. And those are some of the measurements that were made back then. What he was witnessing were this huge solar flare and solar storm. In 5 minutes, it was over with. Now, just before dawn the next day, skies all over the planet were just erupting in red, green, and purple auroras, so brilliant that newspapers could be read as easily as in daylight. In fact, it was very bright over Cuba, the Bahamas, Jamaica, as far south as El Salvador, and even Hawaii. It was amazing. If something like this happened today, it would wipe out the grid. I mean, it'd be gone. Telegraph systems, of course, we're talking 156 years ago. Telegraph systems worldwide went completely haywire. Spark discharges shocked telegraph operators, because remember, these were wires that were strung all over the country, and Morse code being tapped out by these Morse code keys. The telegraph operators were being shocked, and in fact, the keys were actually sparking and setting papers on the desks on fire. Even when the telegraphers disconnected the batteries powering the lines, aurora-induced electric currents in the wires still allowed messages to be transmitted. That was the Carrington Event 156 years ago today. And just imagine if something like that happened today with all the electronics infrastructure that we rely on, we'd be in the dark. It would be just incredible. So there you go. Let's hope we never see that. The Carrington Event, 156 years ago today. Pretty amazing stuff. Well, let's talk about a really cool company who sponsors this program, and that is DX Engineering. No denying that ham radio is amazing fun, but let's not overlook the important role that hams play in the community. Emergency communications. We just got over the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Ham radio was very, very important in that. MCOM for short. DX Engineering has spent the last few months adding antennas, radios, and equipment so you can properly outfit your own MCOM Go Kit. Started carrying professional quality protective cases from Nanook. Nanook cases are a great way to move and store your valuable and, let's face it, fragile radio equipment. They're also an excellent foundation for your MCOM Go Kit. The cases have been tested to withstand scorching desert heat, frigid Arctic blasts. They meet strict military standards to be lightweight and virtually indestructible. They have these power claw latches. The lids will stay closed. They come in a huge range of sizes and styles. The perfect one is waiting for you right now at DX Engineering. And clean, stable 12-volt power, of course, critical in an emergency. Rely on power supplies from Samlex. These are switchers, and they can take the sometimes troublesome power from a gas-powered generator, convert it into rock-solid 13.8 volts DC. Several current ratings available. You can get them with features like front panel meters and battery backup. And once you've got your enclosure and your switching power supply, you need your antenna. Make sure they're working at their full potential with Rig Expert antenna analyzers. An invaluable tool for testing the antennas and feed lines during an emergency. They can be used to test coax. They measure capacitance and inductance of reactive loads. Drastically cut down on precious antenna adjustment time with your Rig Expert antenna analyzer. Simple battery-powered operation. Large display makes them easy to use out in the field. And you get a graphic representation of SWR, impedance loss, and more. And DX Engineering adds new MCOM gear all the time. In fact, you'll find plenty more in the new fall catalog, which will be hitting your mailbox in just a few short weeks. In the meantime, keep checking dxengineering.com. See the latest emergency equipment that way. You'll be ready if a disaster strikes. I want you to go to dxengineering.com because DX Engineering ships faster than anybody else in the industry. You get your order in by 10 p.m. Eastern, and if it's in stock, it'll be on a truck headed your way tonight. Proven products, expert advice. DX Engineering helps you shrink the globe. Request your catalog or shop online 24/7, 365 at dxengineering.com/hamnation. DX Engineering, thank you for your support of Ham Nation. DX Engineering, the choice of discerning amateur radio operators worldwide. DX Engineering, the choice of discerning amateur radio operators worldwide, and the camels who love them. So somebody put that up on Facebook, and I just thought that was the funniest thing. Look at the look on that camel's eye. He knows that's a DX Engineering man. Well, George, I'm not sure how we can top that, but let me just toss the reins of the camel over to you.
Don, what a setup, man. You know, I'm not even going to try to touch that.
I wouldn't.
And it's probably good that I don't. Wow.
We got a guest. Let's bring him in and have some fun with him.
Yeah, we do have a guest, and that is our good friend who you and I met up with once again in Huntsville this past Hamfest, and that's Ted Randall from QSO Radio Show. Hi, Ted.
How you doing?
Oh, doing pretty good. Now, I see you've well, first let's tell people what it is that you do.
I get in a lot of trouble.
Professionally, Ted. Professionally.
Okay. We have a lot of fun. I'm a radio engineer, actually, in the Nashville area for a group of radio stations. And I want to clarify one point. Don, you said something about that I was the owner of the radio station. I'm not. Okay. I don't own WTWW. We are the caretakers. Okay.
Ah, okay.
We're the ones that keep it running, make it happen.
Right. It owns you.
You're pretty well near. Yeah. At 2 o'clock in the morning, it makes that announcement sometimes. It says, hey, you better get out here, you know. But no, we really enjoy taking care of the thing. And then, of course, we produce the QSO Radio Show, which I don't know how long we've been doing that now. It must be 9 years, 10 years. I don't know. But that's what we do. And the whole point of it is just to promote the hobby. I mean, that's it. No other purpose. You know, I guess the best thing I can say is that I went through, and for a lot of guys out there that are wondering, if you've got kids and you're thinking, what am I going to do if I can't afford to send my children to college, if I can't do all these things that other people do, get them into ham radio. Because ham radio has a very, very strange way of taking care of them and bringing them up on the top side of life, I guess I want to say. it's an incredible hobby.
And speaking of youth, you have been just a huge supporter of Amateur Radio Newsline and having our Young Ham of the Year recipients every year on the QSO show live from the, or I guess recorded, but they're live on the floor of the Huntsville Ham Fest. And so thank you so much for your support of the Young Ham of the Year award. I know that Bill Pasternak appreciated it. Words just, there aren't enough words to express the appreciation that Bill had for what you've done for us. And that, of course, continues after his passing, and we're trying to keep the torch going. So appreciate you helping us with that and all the support that you've given us for that.
Well, you know, the one thing I want to say on that is you guys, you know, apart from the Young Ham of the Year, Bill Pasternak was like, I don't know, a shining example of what the best of the best can be. And the Amateur Radio Newsline, which we are so happy has continued, we carry it on WTWW. And you can check on the station's website. I'm not sure where the schedule is. It's somewhere in there, but it airs several times a week on WTWW. One of the most professionally done productions, audio productions, radio productions, I think that's ever come out. That's been, you know, broadcast over radio into the public, and we're really proud of running that show on WTWW.
Thank you much. We appreciate your support with that. So what's going on with WTWW? I think maybe you have some pictures to show us. Not too many people have seen a shortwave station. I used to work actually at WRNO in New Orleans back in the 80s when WRNO Worldwide and the shortwave was kicking, and we would simulcast the FM on the shortwave back in the mid-80s and beam that thing all over the place. And that was pretty amazing for, let's say, kids over in Russia or some of the other, you know, Soviet bloc countries who didn't have access to American rock and roll and Levi's jeans commercials and Coca-Cola ads to hear a little bit of what they were missing in life in the West. And it was amazing when we would simulcast that thing on this 100,000 watt shortwave, had a log periodic pointed that way. And when the 800 number started ringing, when we would simulcast, you never knew who or where you were talking to. So talk a little bit about how cool it is to be on a shortwave radio station.
Well, you know, the fellow Costello, Mr. Costello, was it Joe, I think. Yep. That was the first commercial shortwave station in the United States. So you could credit him for the beginnings of that. WRNO became I guess I want to say a real famous radio station all over the world because of that. You know, the other thing is that a lot of folks don't realize, and that is that, you know, some governments have stopped broadcasting on shortwave, and of course that's cool because that sends more people to us. But the thing is that shortwave over the years has grown like a stealth type thing. It's kind of interesting because when I talked to the folks at Texan in Beijing and talked about how many radios they make, it was astounding. I think the number was like 30,000 a day, you know, and it's like, wow, where do they all go? You know, and I talked to them, and the fellow explained it all to me. But with us, the thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to do some basics. In other words, we use the shortwave media to do one thing. We have, like, for example, our Bible station runs 7 languages, dramatized with sound effects and all that on one transmitter. On another transmitter, there's all sorts of programming. That comes from the group that owns the station out of Colorado. And then the number 2 transmitter is the wild card. We are trying our best to make it a fun thing to listen to and an interesting thing. So we have oldies and country music on the weekends. We have during the week, we have Art Bell coming on at 11 o'clock at night, Central Daylight Time. And prior to that, we have music coming on. Of course, we air QSO. Tuesday nights, we air Tom Medlin, W5KUB, and myself do a little thing on Tuesday nights called Roundtable. And so we're trying to make shortwave something that people really can say, hey, you know what, I'm glad I got one of these radios, you know, rather than tuning around saying, I can't find anything I really like to listen to. The audience is horrendous. You're right. You can get an email the phone will ring. It's some guy in South Africa. The phone will ring somebody in Germany. The phone will ring somebody in Chicago, Illinois. You just don't know where they are. It's hard to even imagine where the people are listening. And you can have a kind of a depressing day, and I'll come in to sit down and play some records on the 2-hour show before Art comes on. And when I start getting email and I start getting phone calls, it's just a mind blow. You can't stay in a bad mood. These people are so excited to hear good programming on a shortwave station. And so that's, I guess I'm going to say the goal at this point is to try to make it fun and make it happen. And we want to add to it. We want to add as much as we can. We got 2 more transmitters sitting, waiting to put on the air. So folks have ideas, they can feel free to come to us with it. But we did have a couple pictures if you want to see some things here. I don't know what's your time frame here, but there's...
We got plenty of time. Roll them. Yeah, we got about another... we're just halfway through with the show, so keep going.
Okay. Well, this is a Continental 418 transmitter. This is our transmitter 2. So if you're listening to Art Bell or you're listening to the oldie shows or something like that, this is the beast that's making it happen. And these things are big. And at times they can be disagreeable. And then other times they purr like kittens. This is a shot of this is the modulator section. And it's kind of an interesting thing. If you see those big blue capacitors, there's 2 per module. And the windings on the transformer are set apart at 700 volts. So there's 700 volts going to each module, and all that's connected with the fiber optics back to the main transmitter. And all those are switched on and off by means of logic and actually a computer system that runs it. So it's like PDM modulation, and it's highly effective, but it's it's monstrous. I mean, you walk around inside this cage. We have to keep that all sealed off in order to be compliant with OSHA and I guess whoever else. But it's kind of exciting. There's no big plate transformer or modulator tubes. It's all done by this PDM type circuit. And let's see here. That
probably saves a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I imagine it does with heat and whatnot. That's the number 1 transmitter. I mean, it looks exactly like the other one. There are some differences, but that has mostly to do with age and where they come from. This is a Harris 100 kilowatt shortwave transmitter, and that's our number 3. And there's 3 in this building and 2 in the other building. So it makes for exciting times. This is a transmission line going out to the antenna system. This is a better shot than trying to show the antenna because the antennas are rhombics. They're just hard to photograph. I've tried. I can't get good pictures of the things. They stretch out over acres of land, though. And we had the power company coming out one night because a snake had slithered up there's the snake. Slithered up a power pole and got across the transformer, and it knocked everything out. So we were waiting until, I don't know, must have been 3 o'clock in the morning for the power company to come out. So we alligator clipped one of the little automatic antenna tuners onto the transmission line. We didn't even disconnect from inside. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, we were working all over Europe with about 50 watts on that rhombic. It was a lot of fun. But the snake really, I think he tied into more than what he had bargained for.
I just can't even imagine a 100,000 watt transmitter. I worked at KOMA in Oklahoma City with a 50,000 watt Continental, and we had 3 towers out in the back, and I can remember doing transmitter maintenance. I was a jock, but I would hang out with the engineers because, I don't know, it's the only kind of friends I got attract, I guess. What does that say about me? But we would walk out to the towers, to the phasing shack out there with fluorescent tubes, and we get about halfway out there and they would light up. And that was 50,000 watts on a 3-tower array. I can't even imagine what 100 kW on a rhombic would do. That's just, that's scary.
I was, there you go. There's the power meter. I was coming up the driveway one time, and we were hearing a voice, but the radio had been disconnected out of the automobile, so it wasn't the car radio, and I just couldn't figure out where it's coming from. And as we got in closer, I said, "Stop! Where is this? Where's it coming from?" It was coming out of a paper cup in the cup holder up on the front dash, where somebody got a Coke, it dried up, and evidently there was enough rectification or whatever going on there where the cup became a speaker. And there's all kind of strange stories. There was a picture here that David just had up. My son David sitting in back of me here. Yeah, this is a final tube. This is a 4CV 100,000C, brand new from IMAC. They're about $21,000. You can do a rebuild on them several times, and I think you can get them rebuilt for about $9,000. But they're not without problems when you get them rebuilt. But shortwave's kind of expensive. There was another picture there that had. Oh, there you go. Now David is actually picking this up. Now at the Continental factory, they actually have something they use to pick these things up and stick them in the transmitter. Now he's got a smile on his face, and he thinks he's really cool, but he's straining every muscle in his body right now.
That's not a smile. That's a strain. That's a groan.
And
did you ever send any of those tubes to? There was a company in South Louisiana called Freeland that used to refurb tubes. I don't even think they're still around anymore. Did you ever send any stuff to Freeland?
Yeah, a long time ago I did. I didn't know if they were still in business or not. Because now obviously IMAC owns Econco, which is the rebuilder. So, but I remember Freeland from years ago.
Right after the storm, my job had disappeared in New Orleans, and I actually gave a call out there and went out there to see if there was maybe something I could, see if there was a job or something out there for me. And my 45-year-old eyes, when I saw the work and the tedious work that they were doing to rebuild some of these tubes, and they did everything from little tiny tubes up to huge klystrons that, television tubes that were, 6, 7, 8 feet tall. When I saw the technical work that they were doing by hand out there to refurb some of those tubes, I'm like, I don't have the eye. At 45 back then, I didn't have the eyes for that. But I don't think they're around anymore. But it was a ham actually who owned it, and I can't think of his name or his call sign. But Freeland that was a cool place. That was a neat place to visit.
I've often wanted to see what they do, to rebuild a tube. It's like they have to cut into it, or do whatever they're going to do. And somehow do everything and put it back together with a vacuum. It's just, it seems to be, I was going to say there's a couple of shots here we've got of John Stanley and his wife. John was a missionary with Trans World Radio for a number of years. He worked at HCJB, and they come out and give us a hand from time to time. But these two are an incredible couple, and they know. There's John inside the 418. I had to take and show you this picture. I've got pictures of Matt inside the transmitters, David, Holly, everybody, crawling around inside these things, working on them. Now, there's Matt. Of course, he's Dave Ramsey's chief engineer, and he's doing something. I don't know. That's that thing that looks like a beer keg is actually the tube jacket. The tube sits down in that, and it's surrounded in water, and the water is pumped through. And to the left on that photo, if it's coming out on television the same way, is this big coil. The coil is the actual tank coil or the tank circuit. There's big plungers that go in and out that are motor driven. These things are more mechanical, really, than they are electrical. And I don't know if there's the shot. There's a gearbox on the top that's part of one of the tuning units, and Matt's up there lubing the bicycle chains and the gears and stuff because they dry up and they bind, and then all of a sudden you can't change frequencies. So these things are a handful, I will have to say. There's David and Holly. I'm shooting through the transmitter. They're in the back, and what we've got there is a shot of where the tube goes in, and they've got it all partially disassembled, probably changing the tube out or working on something. I can't really tell. There's Holly and Ruth. Ruth is John Stanley's wife, and they're inside the Harris at this point. So But you can see we're kind of a hands-on operation. We're right in the thick of it. So not only are we taking care of the transmitter and taking care of the transmitters, I should say, and the station from that standpoint. We just had a big antenna issue where we had to have some major work done on the antenna system. But we also are doing our best to do programming, real interesting, hopefully fun programming. So it's different. So any questions? Good stuff.
Yeah, George, you're an engineer. Jump in there, engineer to engineer. You guys jump in, and I'm going to sit back and learn some stuff. And we're for those of you watching in the chat room, if you have questions for Ted, by all means, let Amanda know, and we'll have a fairly extensive Q&A session here coming up in a little bit, because we've got a good bit of time to devote to this tonight. So George, jump in here, and I want to hear the engineers get together.
Okay, Don. Yeah, Ted, the biggest transmitter that I've got is a 50 kW Nautel AM. I've never worked on a shortwave transmitter. I have been inside some over at the Continental plant in Texas a number of years ago while they were building them and looking around. And I was going to ask you earlier, all those little bitty knobs on the front of the transmitter there, there were rows and rows of knobs like you might see on an audio mixer or something, but that's not what it is at all. Tell us what those little bitty knobs are all about and why you need so many of them.
Okay, there should be a picture of the transmitter almost head on. There we go. Each one of those represents a channel. So there's a row of push buttons that's below the meters. You can look at those meters there and look down. You'll see some switches or round switches you can turn back and forth. And underneath there are push buttons, and there's 10. Each one of those push buttons is a channel, and that represents a frequency. So when we're on 5085, we push button number 2, let's say. And if you go to the row of knobs vertically, the second row, and I have to remember this, the top one I believe is the drive, the second one is plate tuning, the third one's plate loading, the fourth one I think is the ballon, and then I think the one on the bottom is the harmonic trap. I'm going by memory here. But that's what that is. So each one of those channels. Now those knobs are tiny, they're small, but they control internal motors inside this thing. And the motors that are in there are what's turning the plate tuning, plate loading, the ballon, and all that is all done by these motor-driven things. Now there's these things in there, we call them pucks. I don't know what they are. They're made by RCA. And those things, if they give out, then the transmitter can't maintain tuning. Now there's like an automatic setting on it where it's actually looking for certain conditions and voltages, and it actually will move the tuning controls on its own to correct for something. I don't know. Maybe a big crow goes out and sits on the line or something. Who knows what those conditions are, and it will actually try to tune. But now if these little RCA pucks inside, they get messed up, then it can't seem to find the sweet spot. So it'll sit there and just grind away trying to tune in, and it can't. And when you mash the button, it changes the channel. Like, for example, we go from 5085. During the day, we're on 9930. So we push the button for 9930. It switches to the 9930 channel. And then, of course, the transmitter is looking for plate tuning, plate loading, the drive tuning. All that has to turn and move by means of motors and stop at precisely the right place. And then we're, of course, then we're tuned and on the air. But it's not perfect. I mean, we have to be out there, I don't know, several times a week where we have to go out to the site and fine tune and reset all that because it drifts. I mean, it's just it's a lot of power, a lot of heat, a lot of current, so. But it's also a lot of fun. It's a tremendous amount of fun. And it's been quite a learning experience for these two sons of mine to think about the fact that they now are, I guess I want to say, as current as anyone I know. on the technology of shortwave broadcasting and working on these transmitters and troubleshooting them. That's a lot of fun. One of them goes down, and it's time to figure out what's wrong with it. And I'm glad I just don't have to do all that by myself. Or I probably couldn't do it.
I understand that. Yeah, it's hard work, but like you say, it's a lot of fun too. Some days it's not a whole lot of fun. Like I was relating a story to Don earlier this week. Sunday night, one of my AMs went off the air. It's a unipole antenna. You know, the tower is grounded, and then there's those wires around the outside of it in a loop that connects them at the bottom, and that loop was, I don't know, 20 foot in the air. The piece of cable that went up to that, for some reason, burned in too. I have no idea why. I mean, I'm kind of new at this particular station, and I knew there was a problem. The transmitter showing a high reflected power. And so I went down to the doghouse, and there the line is laying across the top of it. So it's in a bad area of town. And, you know, it's kind of difficult at night to climb a tower using the headlights of your truck because it's night, and holding a gun at the same time and not wearing a tower belt trying to put that back.
Wow.
But, you know, those are the kind of stories and fun events that you can have as a broadcast engineer, right, Ted?
Well, you know, we have alligators down here. We have alligators at the transmitter sites down here. You got to take a boat to some of them. So, you know, it's all in what you want to shoot at, I guess.
I recall like at one point it was at a shortwave station, and I came in, and the gentleman that was on duty said, well, you know, they put a speaker out in the field down by the river. I said, a speaker in the field by the, you know, and I opened the window, and there's the sound of some preacher. I mean, he's coming up from the river bottom. It sounds like the voice of God thundering, you know. And I started looking, and I said, what on earth? And it was a line arc. And it was so loud, it was deafening, you know. And, of course, I went over and turned the transmitter off immediately. But this fella actually thought that there was a speaker down at the river. You'll see some really weird stuff at that power level. And as you go over 100 kilowatts, when you get to some of the stations that are running 250,000 or 500,000, the anomalies get even worse. I mean, we have things like people hearing the audio out of a fence that's a mile away. You know, you can actually hear a voice. So you really don't know. No, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you want me to, I've got a short video clip that Matt took, and it's a flyover he did with a drone over the property. If you'd like me to give that a whirl, I can do it.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay. Now you can see the feed line coming out of the front of the building. Now that feeds the first rhombic, or the rhombic in front. There's a modular home on the property there, and then you can see the feed line travels out. And I'm trying to think here, this orientation-wise, that particular rhombic fires to the east. These are transmission lines in the back of the building, go to the second rhombic and the third rhombic. And Matt's gotten pretty good at flying this drone, but I guess that kind of would give you a little bit of an idea as how the size of the property. Right across the street is the Cumberland River, so we are like right on. Wow. The Cumberland River.
So how tall are the antennas above ground?
I would say they're on utility poles. I would say probably 60 feet, maybe something along that line. You know, it's kind of funny because folks come out and they'll say, well, you broadcast all over the world. Where's your tower? It's like, well, we don't have a tower. Those are the other two outbuildings at the bottom of the property, and then the utility building right there houses the other two Harris transmitters. They'll say, where's your tower at? I say, well, we don't really have a tower. We use rhombics, and of course they don't know what that is. And when you talk about wire antennas, and they give you the real blank stare. And it's hard for them to imagine that you're actually reaching, into Egypt and Japan and places like that by not having a big tower. They just relate everything. There's Matt waving. But that was kind of a cool clip from a drone.
Wow, that was really neat. You know, that's a lot of acres there. It takes a lot of acres to do something like that. I don't want to start a religious war here, but let me ask you, Continental or Harris?
You know, that's a loaded question. Let me say this. We have the one Harris running right now. That thing doesn't go down. It just doesn't quit. I mean, and when it does, of course, that's one transmitter I am just not all that familiar with. We work on them and we get it fixed. David is, my son, David's sitting in back of me. Well, there he is. He's up on top of he's in top of the air plenum. Like I said, these guys get inside these things and crawl around. This thing just stays on the air. I mean, it just behaves itself. Maybe it's because we're running the Bible on it. I don't know. But it just doesn't go down. The other ones they are finicky and they'll just drive you crazy. The number one, every once in a while, you know, it's just out of tune. You go out there and tune it up. It'll last 2 or 3 days. Bang, out of tune again. You know, and then it'll go a month and never give you a problem. You know, so. But I would say if I had to, of course, the 418 is still being made. The Harrises are not. So if you're gonna try to find a used Harris transmitter, you better get some parts, you know, and get lots of them, as many as you can get. Maybe buy 2 or 3 more transmitters so that you got a part stash. The 418 is still being made, and they're outfitting the thing for DRM today. That's, you know, the big deal, and. 418 is a great transmitter. Either one of them are really, really well built, well made, and do exactly what they were designed to do.
He
fascinating
really
stuff
around that, didn't he, Don?
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Ted Randall, of course, our guest tonight from WTWW, the shortwave station in Nashville, and we'll bring Amanda in and we'll get into the chat room here in just a sec. But let's go ahead and get our last sponsor in for the night, and that is Harry's. Of course, transmitters are precision equipment, and so are razors, especially the way that Harry's does it. Harry's is fixing a problem that some of us have, and that, of course, is paying too much for overpriced razors. It's expensive to maintain this face right here. It's not fun either. Shaving's not fun. You cut yourself. You scrape yourself. Dull blades. You're more likely to cut yourself with a dull blade than a sharp blade. And they're expensive. They run about $4 a shot. Somebody who shaves every day spends hundreds of dollars a year just on razors, the big name brands. Now, of course, you got to go to the store and buy them. Sometimes you got to deal with, locked up behind a plexiglass cabinet. I'm not buying bullets at over at that side of Walmart. I just want my razors. Well, there's a company that fixes all that, and it's called Harry's. Give you high-quality razors at about half the price of the big brand blades, because they make their own razors at their own factory in Germany. And there it is. You can see it, spitting those things out by the bajillions. They engineer them for sharpness and high performance, and they'll ship them for free right to your front door. And because they make and ship their own blades, they're a way more efficient company, which means they can give you factory direct pricing. I love Harry's. Now, I've been, every time I talk about this, I'll tell you, and I'll go on record as saying, I'm a confirmed electric guy, but there's just something cool about holding this razor in my hand, my chrome Harry's razor. Look at that, Joe. That's a nice one right there. Look at that chrome plated job. Something special about just, oh man, it's like I'm pampering myself. Like on a weekend morning, I'll get the hot towel ready, and I'll take my shower first, because you got to soften it all up, and I put my hot towel on here, and I'm standing. I'm like, oh, this is nice. I got the iPad going with the Bluetooth speaker, and I got, I don't know, Michael Franks or something jazzy on there, and because you don't want to get all, you don't want to get the rock and roll going. You peel the whole side of your face off. But so I get something nice, little Michael Franks, little Joni Mitchell, and I get all lathered up, and you get the lather going, you get the stuff, and you either get the can type, or they have the cream in here too. You get one, whichever one you like. They'll send you one of those. And you lather up, and you just go to town, and man, it's like I walk in there and I'll go, Dawn, come feel my nice clean close shave. She loves to feel my, no, she's a Harry's girl. She has her own Harry's Harry's shaver. So it's not just for guys. But you get the razor, you get the shave cream or the shave gel, you get this neat little cover right here to cover the blades, and also, look at this, here's a travel cover. You can take your Harry's with you. And of course, it's vented to get the water and the stuff out, but so there you go. Throw that in your bag and roll. And you get a box with razors in it. 3 blades, and the 1 in here and 2 in here, and as you can see, I need to reorder because I just have 1 left. That's what you get. The starter Truman set is an amazing deal. It's just like I showed you, except it has a plastic handle. There it is right there. And it's normally $15. But if you order now at harrys.com, you can you get a little discount. Get a little discount. We're going to save you half the cost of the razors at the store. There's an aftershave moisturizer you can get too that's really, really nice. But if you go to harrys.com, you get $5 off your first purchase with code HAMNATION. That's $10. harrys.com. Enter the code HAMNATION at checkout. Thank you so much, Harry's, for making me a Harry's man, and my wife thanks you too. Made her a Harry's girl. All right, let's bring Amanda in now and see what we've got going in the chat room. Interesting stuff, Amanda. How are you tonight?
I am great, and Ted, I loved everything you just showed us tonight. Of course, I have quite a few questions for you. And the first one being, where can everybody find a schedule and frequency for WTWW? I'm sorry, I was going to get it dyslexic there. Go ahead, Ted.
Yeah, you know, that is kind of an odd call sign, WTWW. It almost feels backward when you're saying it. You have to get used to it, you know, it's WTWW. On the website, I don't know how accurate the current schedule that's posted is. We are, like I said, we're the caretakers, so we have to wind up doing everything, including the website and fixing the transmitters and doing the programming. But it should be at WTWW.us is the website, WTWW.us. And I don't know, I know on the front of that there is a posting for Art Bell giving the times and the frequencies. On the number 2 transmitter, we have a daytime frequency of 9930, and at night it's 5085. So it's, I guess I'm going to say that's but I don't know whether or not we've actually got the schedule in there that shows when we have the music programs on Saturday and Sunday, and I don't know that we've, you know, because we're, like I said, we're a skeleton crew here.
I fully understand, and I appreciate that. And I love somebody's phonetics for it. They on chat, they said, we transmit worldwide. That's pretty cool. Thank you, guys. Okay, I have a couple other questions for you. Randy, K7AGE would like to know, Ted, do you spin your own records, or is all of the music on a server?
Well, I'm not doing 45 RPM records, no. I've got 2 turntables in the studio where I do all the music broadcasting. This is an interesting story. George, you're going to like this, and so are you, Don. But I got the wise idea that I was going to bring albums in, and I brought all these LPs in. I didn't have singles. And I was pulling the LPs out and putting them on the turntable, queuing up the cut, and then I realized the song was over before I had the next one on the next turntable. And I sat back and I thought, how in the heck did I do this when I was young, you know? And I finally just got disgusted. I said, get these things the heck out of here. I'm not going to even fool with these things, you know? So now I take the time and record everything on hard drive. And we've probably got 15,000 songs in the library. And that makes it so much better because we can search for them by database. But do you remember going in the back of the studio where all the records were and thumbing through alphabetically to try to find a single that somebody... How did we do that? I don't understand. I mean, it's a mechanical nightmare.
Walking in a half an hour before the show starts and start pulling your albums out. And oh, yeah, I remember that. And Q burns. There's something else. Yeah. Nobody who's in radio now who has been got in the last 20 years knows anything about Q burns. or God forbid, splice tape and razor blades and China markers. And oh yeah, it's the good old days, man. Making me feel nostalgic. That's how I learned.
I hadn't been on the air.
Are they similar to? Sorry,
I hadn't been on the air since I think '76 is when I quit working as a disc jockey. But I'll still have a nightmare every now and then where I'm working on the air, and I've got something playing, and I don't have anything queued up, and I don't have anything in the tape machines, and here we go.
It's the dream. The dream.
Oh,
I have that, and let me tell you, I don't know. Maybe this is something about me. Maybe I spent too much time around that 50,000 watt transmitter. But typically, when I have the dream where all of a sudden everything goes wrong, I'm naked. And I don't know what that says about me, but that's my dream. And it's the full disclosure. But that dream is universal.
Wrong.
That dream is, everybody who's been on the air has had that dream, but for some reason I'm always naked in mine, and I don't know what that means. I really don't.
Evidently, people that give speeches have the same dream. But by the way, hearing George say, back in my days of a disc jockey, come on, George, what was your name? What was your on-air name? I got to know.
Yeah, I hate to even tell this because.
Oh, no, we got to know now.
I will hear from a lot of people. I didn't pick out the name, but my name was Mason Stone. Yeah, turn it around backwards.
Wow.
I was a rock jock.
Mason Stone. Look at you go.
Wow. So that's just the coolest that you guys are all DJs and everything else. And
cooler than mine. I was the Fat Man.
You were not. That was not your name.
I was, yeah. Robert Mitchell and the Fat Man. It was, and Blair and the Fat Man first. It was the Cool Wake Up Club on Cool 95.7 in New Orleans back in 93 through 97. Waking Up New Orleans. Yeah, the Cool Wake Up Club with whoever it was and the Fat Man. That was when I was 360, 370 pounds back then, before I had the weight loss surgery. So, yeah, I was the Fat Man. And there's something really liberating about having a name like the Fat Man on the radio, because at that point you become a cartoon character. And basically that gives you liberty to say anything you want.
I agree with that. When you're that character, you're kind of like the jester. So anything goes. So now we know why you are how you are. No, you don't know everything, but you have an idea. No, but I know that you're very proud of your WRNO days. And along with that, Ted, I think somebody added the question, and I didn't catch this one because everyone's moving so fast in chat, but somebody wanted to know how much power you're moving at your transmitter, and you might have already gone over that, and I'm sorry if I missed it. If you want to talk about that again, go ahead, just a little bit.
All right, well, the transmitters, all three of them, are designed for and do deliver 100,000 watts of actual RF power output. Now, let me say this, and that is that the antenna system, which is obviously a rhombic, gives a certain amount of gain. So we feed 100,000 watts into the antenna system. We get literally several million watts out in terms of affected radiated power. And of course, with FM radio, George and Don, you're very familiar with that. The transmitters may only put out 20,000 watts into a 10-bay antenna, and then the station is rated at 100 kilowatts. But they don't rate shortwave in the megawatts, but that's really what you have. And you don't really realize it until you start spending time under the antenna. My son Matt parked in the driveway, and it literally burnt up his ignition system. I mean, the stuff was just black under the hood from the RF getting in there. It's pretty weird, but there's a lot of gain on those antennas.
I can imagine. So speaking of Matt, I would love for you to have Matt just come up and say hello to all of us. Matt looks like he's working really hard there in the background. I'd just like to say, hello, Matt. Thanks for being there. Looks like you're doing a good job.
The guy in the background is David.
Oh.
And Matt's not with us tonight.
That was your son. Okay.
He had a bunch of stuff going on, and he couldn't make it, but Matt's generally around. But that's David. David is I guess I want to say acting chief engineer at Trevecca Nazarene University. Now, he got his ham license, and, you know, he's also a radio engineer. This is kind of an interesting story because Trevecca wound up selling their radio stations. So we thought, well, David's going to be looking for an engineering job pretty soon. But what happened was the whole staff of the radio station they kept David because they had too many other things for him to do. So he's heavily involved in all the video work and video IT and all that over at Trevecca Nazarene University, which is, and so he's the one that assembled all this in here tonight. He's the reason why we can do stills and play video clips and stuff, because he has some sort of aptitude in that department, which I don't.
Very good. Well, hey, David, thank you so much. And thanks for all your talent there. We definitely appreciate it tonight. Wave one more time to Ham Nation. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm an engineer and don't talk to people. Okay, I can totally tell. Now we're making them blush. Finally, I get a chance to make somebody blush. Don, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. You're learning, Grasshopper. You're learning.
Yes. All right. Hey, you guys, I have some other questions. I know we're a little bit past time tonight now. What do you want? Do you want some more questions, or
give us two real quick, and then we got to wrap up because we are over time.
Okay, so Adam, and I feel bad for Adam here, 80 AM. He's got some RF issues, and Ted was talking about RF issues, obviously way larger. But this poor fella says that his 40-meter inverted V shuts his PC off when he transmits on 40 meters. Using with an MFJ 969 tuner, and 20 and 10 meters don't do it. PC and radio are 20 feet away from antenna as far as he can go with it, and using ladder line for feed line at 100 watts. And on second story, so no place to run ground without putting parallel to antenna. George, kind of any advice?
Yeah.
Wow.
Ask Ted or Don because I wasn't paying attention. Sorry.
Wow.
Okay.
You know, my 40 meters gets into 40 and 80 gets into my computer speakers a lot. And in fact, 40 will actually shut down, or 80 will shut down the USB connection between my 7600 and the computer. So there's something about those frequencies that gets in. I would just say put RF chokes on everything. Being on the second floor doesn't help because there's something that's acting as you know, you can't run a ground. You got to have like an artificial ground. Ted, you're probably the more expert on this than we are.
When it comes to RF, I don't think there are any rules.
Well, it's true.
I don't know. I would say that I would try repositioning things. You may find that you've got a hotspot there of some sort. You know that. With a hotspot, it's deceiving because then it appears as if you have this RF problem throughout the entire house, and you may not. It may just be right where everything is. And I wouldn't. I don't know. If there was a way, I don't know what kind of access you got, but I wouldn't be too far removed from trying to find some copper strap and running it up to the second floor. That might, that very well could help possibly.
Yeah. Something nice and wide, too.
Yep. And RF messes with us a lot. We have some bad electricity in the house, some as old as knob and tube, and then other up to specs. So sometimes our phones stop working. Sometimes our laptop little touchpads stop working. You just never know. And every day it can be different. So there's really no definite answer to your RF problem, except for to keep putting ferrite beads on stuff, choke it all out, move your antenna, just move it directionally a little bit and try that. We raised ours about 20 feet, worked like a champ. Now we still can't run on 80, but it's a little bit better. So, all right. Good luck, Adam. And I think we all feel your pain. And I think everyone in the chat room feels your pain too, because we've all experienced some kind of RF. There's just no quick answer. With that, okay, George, I think you can handle this one. Please listen this time, and we'll get you the question. Okay. How many legs?
Chastising.
Oh, I'm just saying. How many legs can you put on a fan dipole before it becomes an SWR problem?
Oh, gee. You wouldn't ask me a tough one. I don't know that there's a particular limit on it. It depends on, I guess, what frequencies you're dealing with. I probably wouldn't go more than 3, but theoretically, I guess you could go more than that.
What kind of question is that?
Is there a record?
That's like how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop?
I just watched a show about that last night.
2. Remember that old commercial?
I do. I'm kind of curious, is there a record of how many legs you can have on there? No.
I don't know. Whoever asked that question, try it and get back to us.
As Bob says, just throw it out there.
Just throw it up there. Take it out of the box first.
What can you lose? Just won't work. There you go.
All right. There it is. No, that's not the one. The one was an owl.
The one with the owl.
The one with the owl. That's old school. There it is. 1, 2, 2. Question answered. Bye-bye. Next question. Love that. All right, guys. We got to wrap this thing up. We're horribly over time, but Ted, Randall, WB8, PUM, this has been a fascinating look into the world of shortwave broadcasting. That's something that there aren't that many of those stations around, especially in the U.S. There's a handful, and again, it's kind of cool that I worked at WRNO, the first commercial shortwave in the station. I had in the States. I had no clue just how cool that was back in '84 when I was there. But now it's very cool. So anyway, thanks for coming on and sharing some insight with us about that.
I was going to say, let me just add one final thought, and that is we have about the first hour we're on playing music, we'll have 600 emails come in. I don't think a Chicago FM could do that. But I want to say, folks, tune in and listen to the oldies in the country. And remember this, if your club or organization or anything is having something going on that you want us to talk about, just email us. We'll be happy to put it on live or put you on. By means of phone or whatever. And we do take requests, we take dedications, and we just have a whole lot of fun. And of course, QSO airs on WTWW2. So, but I want to say thank you for having us on tonight. And I just want to say, everybody grab their radios and make shortwave radio a fun thing to do.
Great. What's the email address, Ted?
It's email, the word email, at WTWW.us.
Well, that's pretty easy. Email at WTWW.us. There you go. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, you two, for being on with us tonight. Again, this has been just absolutely fascinating. It's something that we haven't delved into before, and I'm glad we got the chance to do it tonight. So thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
All righty. Well, we really appreciate you having us on and, letting us invite amateurs and shortwave listeners to tune in and participate with our broadcast.
Awesome. Good. All right, we got nets tonight. 14, what is it, 268 for 20 meters? Where's 40?
I don't think we know where 40 is.
I have not seen it.
I saw it go across the chat room. Somebody real quick in the chat room let us know where 40 is. We'll talk about the digital stuff. Of course, we'll have Cheryl on 80 as well. What is that, 3847, 3850, somewhere around there. And, of course, Echolink. Star Dewdrop in 355-800 and 14 Charlie for the D-Star, and just tune around. You'll find 40. Go to the just Google it. I think it's Ham Nation 40. Google Ham Nation 40, and you 7278. Someone says so. There you go. That's where your 40-meter net is, and so there's your nets tonight. So we'll go around the horn one more time. George, any final thoughts tonight?
Yeah, I need to give away some stuff here before I get in trouble.
Oh,
you do. Go ahead.
Last week, I asked a question, what are the units of impedance? And your choices were A, volts, B, amperes, C, coulombs, or D, ohms. We had a winner in that. It's Larry Anderson, WB5ENP, and he said the answer to this week's question is ohms, the unit of measurement for impedance. So congratulations, Larry. We're going to send you this Heil LB1 lighted mic base. For next week, we've got another prize here. This one comes from our friends at DX Engineering. It's a 24-hour clock, a wall clock. If you'd like to win that, then Here's a question. What are the three electrodes of a PNP or NPN transistor? A, emitter base collector. B, source gate drain. C, cathode grid plate. Or D, cathode drift cavity and collector. If you know the answer to that, send your answer to me, hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and we may send you one of these DX Engineering wall clocks for your ham station. All right.
Cool.
7-3.
Love those clocks. I got one here in front of me. It's great for seeing the UTC time all the time. Love that thing. All right, so again, Ted Randall and company, thanks again for being with us tonight. George, awesome as always. Amanda, we couldn't do it without you. And, of course, Gordon West at the top of the show. I think Bob Heil will be back next week, so join us again next Wednesday night for Ham Nation. Oh, and thanks to Dr. T as well, Dr. Tamitha Scove with the solar update. So for everybody involved with what we do here, and Brian, our master control back in Petaluma, we couldn't do it without you either. Thanks a lot, and we will see you guys next week here on Ham Nation. Good night, everybody.
Night.